Have you ever been to the doctor and they've thrown around a spondy term for your back pain and your brain just stalls out? If so, trust me, you are definitely not alone. The names all sound ridiculously similar, but they mean very different things for your spine.
Yeah, I'm talking about spondylosis, spondylolisthesis, spondylitis, spondylolysis. It's a real mouthful, and it's easy to get them all mixed up. But don't you worry, because we are about to make it all make sense.
And that's our simple promise today. We are going to decode these 4 conditions so you can finally understand what sets them apart and, most importantly, why it matters for your health.
So to make this easier, we're going to start by grouping the 2 spondies that are all about degeneration. That natural wear and tear our bodies go through over time.
Okay, first up, spondylosis. Now, take a good look at this picture. You can see how the discs, those cushions between the bones, are getting worn down. You can even spot little bone spurs starting to form. This, right here, is the classic picture of wear and tear.
The name itself gives us a massive clue. Spondylo is just a fancy word for vertebra, and osis simply means an abnormal condition. So the easiest way to think about spondylosis, it's basically the general term for age-related arthritis in the spine.
So what does this all mean for you? Well, it's that disc wear and those bone spurs that lead to stiffness and that nagging pain. That's why physical therapy really zeroes in on improving your posture, keeping that spine as mobile as possible, and building up the muscles that support the whole structure.
That's the perfect question, because it leads us straight into our next condition. This is a great example of how one spondy can sometimes lead to another.
And boom, here's the result. Look really closely at that vertebra. See how it's actually slipped forward right over the one underneath it? That slip is the defining feature. We're not just talking about wear and tear anymore. This is a real shift in the spine's alignment. And once again, let's look at the name. The secret decoder word here is listhesis. That literally means slipping. So spondylolisthesis just means vertebra slipping. See? It's not so confusing once you know the trick.
Now this slippage usually happens way down in the lower back, and because that bone is moving, it can start to pinch on nerves, causing pain. That's why physical therapy for this is so specific. It's all about building a strong core to act like a natural back brace and teaching you to avoid movements that arch your back, which could make that slip worse.
All right, let's totally switch gears. We've talked about wear and tear. The next 2 spondies we're going to cover are completely different animals. They're not caused by aging, they're caused by inflammation and, in some cases, an actual injury.
So say hello to spondylitis. Just look at the joints in this picture. They look red, irritated, inflamed, and over a long period, all that inflammation can cause the bones to actually start fusing together, creating what's often called a bamboo spine because it becomes so rigid.
And you guessed it, the name is our cheat sheet. You've probably heard this before. Anytime you see itis at the end of a medical word, it screams inflammation. Spondylitis is an inflammatory arthritis, and a classic example is ankylosing spondylitis.
Now here's a really interesting clue for spondylitis. You often feel incredibly stiff in the morning, but it actually gets better the more you move around. Kind of weird, right? So the treatment matches that. Physical therapy is all about maintaining mobility to fight that fusion, working on posture, and even doing breathing exercises since the ribs can get stiff too.
And that brings us to our 4th and final spondy. Now, I want you to look really, really closely at the back part of this vertebra here. Do you see it? That tiny crack, that little separation right there, that is spondylolysis. Our final magic word is lysis. Just think, lysis means a separation or a break. So spondylolysis is, for all intents and purposes, a stress fracture in a very specific spot on the vertebrae. This isn't about wear and tear or inflammation, this is an injury. And who gets this? Well, we see it a ton in young athletes, people like gymnasts, dancers, football linemen, who do a lot of repetitive arching of their back. So the game plan for treatment is totally different. It often starts with rest to let that bone heal, then moves to serious core stabilization to protect that injured area from future stress.
Okay, deep breath. We've gone through all 4. Now for that aha moment. Let's line them all up side by side on one slide. This is where it's all going to click into place.
Let's nail this down once and for all. Spondylosis, that's your general wear and tear. Spondylolisthesis, that's the slip. Spondylitis, inflammation. And spondylolysis, that's the fracture. See? 4 very different problems with 4 very different causes. So you might be wondering, okay, great, but why is it so important to get this right? Well, it's simple. Because understanding the real root cause of your back pain changes absolutely everything about how you treat it.
If you walk away with anything from this, let it be these 3 things. 1. The end of the name is your secret decoder ring. 2. The cause, wear and tear, slipping, inflammation, or fracture is what truly separates them. And 3. A correct diagnosis is king. Because you would never treat a fracture the same way you treat inflammation. It just wouldn't work.
And just like that, 4 super confusing terms made simple. Hopefully, they're not so intimidating anymore.
Look, here is the bottom line. If you have back pain, please don't play guessing games. Go see a healthcare professional. Get the right diagnosis because that is the only true foundation for actually getting better.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. Your spine is incredible. It carries you through your entire life. Now you're armed with the knowledge to ask smarter questions and be a true partner in your own health. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.